After all, brothers go through phases. Brothers argue. Brothers get distant. But then the rumors started. Bloggers whispered, Jim is building his own empire. Radio hosts suggested, Jim and 50 Cent are getting really close. And industry insiders quietly said, Cam isn't in control of Dipset anymore. Cam'ron hated rumors, but he hated disloyalty even more. And in his mind, Jim's actions, intentional or not, were starting to look like betrayal. The industry begins choosing sides. One thing most fans never realize is that hip-hop isn't just music hits business. And business people always bet on the side that looks stronger. It isn't just music hits business. And business people always bet on the side that looks stronger. Right now, the industry was confused. Cam'ron was a proven veteran. Jim Jones was the rising star. 50 Cent was the kingmaker. Every producer, label executive, and promoter started calculating possibilities. Some believed Jim might leave Dipset and join 50's camp. Others believed Cam would push Jim out before that happened. A few believed 50 was only using Jim as leverage in his bigger wars, but everyone agreed on one thing. Something was breaking. And whenever a powerful camp begins to fall apart, the industry always turns into vultures waiting to see who will survive. Jim Jones feels torn. Jim was a street guy, a loyalty guy, a Harlem guy. He didn't want to betray Cam. He didn't want Dipset to crumble. He didn't want to be seen as choosing sides. But his success changed the balance. When you become the face of hits, people start talking to you differently. They start offering separate deals. They start planting ideas. Jim wasn't the type to be manipulated, but he was the type to respond to disrespect. And every time a DJ introduced Dipset as Cam'ron and his crew, Jim's resentment grew. Every time an article credited Cam more than Jim, Jim's anger grew. Every time fans underestimated him, Jim's patience shrank. So when 50 Cent came along giving him recognition, Cam never fully gave. Jim couldn't ignore it. It felt good. It felt validating. It felt powerful. But it also felt dangerous, like stepping onto a battlefield without realizing you're being surrounded. The phone call that sparked everything. There was one call, one private conversation that turned the tension into something real. 50 Cent called Jim personally. No cameras, no interviews, no jokes, just straight talking. 50 told Jim, "You're bigger than they treat you. You're doing more work than you get credit for. You need people who see your value." Jim didn't argue, because deep down, he believed the same thing. Then 50 said something that set the stage for the entire fallout. "Cam treats you like a soldier, but you're a general." That one sentence shifted Jim's entire mindset. In his head, it wasn't betrayal, it was truth. But truth spoken at the wrong time can be poison. Cam'ron hears about the call. It didn't take long for Cam'ron to hear about the conversation. The music industry is a small world. People talk, information travels fast, loyalty travels slow. When Cam found out, he wasn't angry at first. He was disappointed. He felt like Jim should have told him himself. He felt like Jim was letting outsiders influence him. He felt like Jim was prioritizing fame over family. Cam wasn't just a rapper, he was a leader. And leaders hate surprises. So Cam began planning his next move, not out of revenge, but out of desperation to keep Dipset from collapsing. But sometimes, protecting something looks like fighting it. Jim Jones begins losing control of the narrative. Jim didn't know it at the time, but the moment that phone call leaked, the industry changed its view of him. Suddenly, Jim wasn't seen as the loyal Dipset member. He became the guy who might leave Dipset. He became the pawn in 50's plan. He became the unpredictable one. Executives hate unpredictability. Opportunities that were lined up for Jim suddenly froze. Collaborations that were supposed to be confirmed suddenly got delayed. People started distancing themselves from him not because of anything he did, but because he was standing in between two kings ready to go to war. No one wants to be near a battlefield when two giants aimed cannons at each other. The first public cracks appear, then it happened. The first public sign, a small moment, barely noticeable to casual fans, but to insiders, it was a warning shot. Jim did an interview where he praised 50 Cent heavily and didn't mention Cam'ron at all. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't disrespectful. But that omission traveled through the industry like wildfire. Suddenly, headlines appeared. Is Jim Jones choosing 50 Cent over Cam'ron? Dipset? Beef brewing behind the scenes? Jim Jones distancing himself from Cam? Cam saw the interview. He didn't call Jim. He didn't yell. He didn't confront him. He simply went quiet, and silence is more dangerous than anger. 50 Cent's fans start stirring the fire. 50 Cent's fan base is known for one thing. They love chaos. So when they saw Jim Jones getting close to 50, they began doing what they do best, They flooded Jim's comments with, "You don't need dips at 50 treats, you better than Cam ever did. You're bigger than Cam. Cam holding you back." And even if Jim ignored those comments, the noise still crept into his mind. Meanwhile, Dipset fans fired back. Jim is being disloyal. Jim forgot who made him. Jim switching sides. Suddenly, Jim was in the middle of a war he didn't start, but one he couldn't escape. The industry prepares for an explosion by now. The tension was thick enough to feel in the air. Cam'ron silently watched. Jim Jones felt misunderstood. 50 Cent continued smiling publicly. Fans began choosing sides. Blogs started counting down the days. Everyone knew something was coming. They didn't know when. They didn't know how, but they knew the storm was building. Jim still believed he could keep the peace. He believed he could stay neutral. He believed he could be friends with both Cam and 50 without consequences. He was wrong, because in hip-hop, neutrality is impossible when kings go to war. And Jim Jones was about to learn that the hard way. The tension in the industry was no longer silent. It was loud, visible, almost impossible to deny. By now, even fans who didn't follow beefs could sense something was wrong between Jim Jones and Cam'ron. And the one person who watched all of this with a smirk was 50 Cent. He didn't start the war. He just positioned himself so perfectly that when it began, he'd benefit from every explosion. Jim Jones, on the other hand, was stuck in the middle of a fire with no way out. He didn't want to choose sides, but sides were already choosing him. Jim Jones tries to stay neutral. Jim spent weeks pretending everything was fine. He posted studio clips. He performed at shows. He smiled during interviews. But behind the scenes, he was an emotional storm. Every message from Cam felt colder. Every call from industry people felt heavier. Every time someone mentioned 50 Cent, things got awkward. Jim kept telling himself, "I can balance this. I can be cool with both. This doesn't have to be a war." But the rap game doesn't work like regular life. There are no neutral zones. You're either aligned with someone, or you're aligned against them. And the industry had already decided what side Jim was on even if he hadn't. Cam'ron finally confronts Jim. Cam'ron wasn't the type to explode instantly. He was strategic, calm, and in control. But after weeks of rumors, silence, and tension, he decided it was time. He called Jim, not to yell, not to threaten, but to talk like the brothers they once were. Jim answered the phone with his usual energy. "Yo, what's good?" But Cam's tone was different, flat, emotionless, serious. "We need to talk." Jim knew instantly this wasn't a casual conversation. Cam went straight to the point. "I'm hearing too many things. Interviews, meetings, people saying you rolling with 50. People saying Dipset ain't your priority no more." Jim tried to defend himself. "Bro, it's not like that. I'm just working. Networking." Cam cut him off. "Working with who? Networking with who? People who've been going at us for years." The silence on the line was painful. Jim didn't want to admit it, but he knew Cam was talking about 50. Then Cam said something that hit Jim in the chest. "You didn't have to choose him over me, but you did." Jim felt the heat rise in his face. "I didn't choose nobody. I'm trying to move up. You act like I'm supposed to stay in the same place forever." Those words changed everything. Cam's reply was cold. "So that's what you think? You think Dipset is holding you back?" Jim didn't answer, and sometimes silence hurts more than words. Cam ended the call with 8. "Bet, just remember something. Loyalty don't come back once you lose it." The line cut. Jim stared at his phone, breathing heavy. For the first time, he realized the truth. The brotherhood was broken. 50 Cent reacts instantly. It didn't take long before 50 heard about the argument. The industry grapevine is faster than social media. When 50 got the news, he laughed. This was exactly what he wanted, not because he hated Jim, but because weakening Dipset gave him more power. He posted a cryptic message online. When people finally see their worth, they stop letting others play them. Fans instantly linked the post to Jim and Cam. Jim saw the post. He didn't repost it. He didn't comment. But the message hit him deeply. Someone was validating him, giving him support. And that someone was the music industry starts closing the door on Jim. The consequences of that broken phone call didn't hit Jim immediately. They hit his bid team. Noticed the shift first. A major festival quietly removed him from the lineup. 2 features he already recorded got canceled. A brand partnership paused negotiations. A radio station replaced his scheduled appearance with another artist. Nobody told him why. Nobody gave an explanation. Everything was unfortunate timing or schedule changes. But Jim wasn't stupid. He knew the industry was sending a message. You're no longer protected. Being aligned with 50 Cent made him look disloyal to Dipset. Not being aligned with Cam made him look unstable. Being stuck in the middle made him look unpredictable. Labels hate unpredictable, and promoters hate drama. Jim could feel the world tightening around him. Every door that opened for him during his rise began slowly closing. Cam'ron makes his first public move. Cam didn't want a public feud. He wasn't chasing headlines, so wasn't going to sit quietly while the industry painted him as a villain, but one that hit harder than any diss track. In an interview, the host asked, "How's Dip? You and Jim still working?" Cam answered with a dry smile, "I'm working. People who want to work with me, work. People who want to do their own thing, do their own thing." It was calm. It was controlled. But it was also a message. The separation is real. Blogs exploded. Dipset officially breaking down. Cam and Jim not on the same page. 50 Cent influence causing damage. Jim saw the interview. He felt the punch. Not anger, but sadness. Because for the first time, the world knew they were falling apart. Jim Jones, despite everything, ready to give up on Dipset. He tried reaching out. He sent Cam messages. He called twice. He even reached out to mutual friends. Cam didn't respond. Not out of hatred, but out of disappointment. To Cam, it was loyalty. And loyalty once cracked doesn't get easily repaired. Jim began feeling isolated, not just from Cam, but from the whole industry. Yet the person who wasn't isolating him was 50 Cent? 50's line. 50 invited Jim to a private studio session, not to record music, but to talk. When Jim arrived, he expected a lecture. Instead, 50 greeted him with, "Forget all that noise. Forget the blogs. Forget what people think you owe. It's time to build your own empire." Jim sat down quietly. He didn't agree. He didn't disagree. He just listened. 50 continued, "You've been carrying people who don't carry you. You've been ain't appreciated. You've been trying to save a team that ain't trying to save you." Jim didn't want to admit it. Lying. Then 50 dropped the real bomb. "You got two options. Try to fix something that don't want to be fixed. Or move forward and watch the world follow you." Jim, it was the decision he had been avoiding, the one destroying his sleep, his peace, his focus. Stay with Dip or build a new path with someone powerful backing him. Jim didn't answer that night, but the seed was planted. The breaking point arrives. The blow came unexpectedly. A viral line, not a diss track, not a statement. It was backstage when Ron walked past Jim without acknowledging him. Jim turned toward Cam to greet him, but Cam kept walking as if Jim wasn't even there. The clip spread online. Fans screamed, "Dipset is over." Come curved Jim Jones on camera. "This is real beef." Jim saw the clip. He stared at it for a long time. Felt heavy. His eyes burned, not with anger, but with heartbreak. That was the moment he realized there was no going back. Whatever they had, brotherhood, music, family, it was broken. And 50 Cent? He was waiting right there in the shadows, ready to strike while Dipset was in pieces. Part 3 is facing the hardest truth of his career. If he wanted to survive, he'd have to choose a side. If parts 1, 2, 3 showed the buildup of tension, is where everything finally heats up. The relationship between 50 Cent, Cam Jones has become a public view. Every lyric and every street rumor. What the energy was now a scale campaign to decide who controls narrative and legacy in the culture. Part moment when loyalty, ego, and revenge become weapons, and how Jim Jones' career takes a sharp turn downward as alliances around him begin to collapse. The climate changes. Everybody starts picking sides after the wave of interviews and cryptic captions from all three artists. A new pressure entered the scene. The industry began choosing sides. Record labels, DJs, promoters, and bloggers were watching the situation with the music world is not just about talent. It's with who you can stand beside, dare to go against. And when 50 Cent enters a conflict, the industry listens. When Cam'ron joins that conflict, the streets listen. Together, their influence created an atmosphere where people began distancing themselves from Jim Jones, not because they hated aligning with him suddenly looked risky. Some promoters quietly froze upcoming bookings. Some DJs stopped pushing his singles. Some labels collaborations that Behind closed doors, if 50 and Cam are applying pressure, staying neutral isn't safe. For Jim Jones, this was the beginning of something much more, an invisible blockade for the old Cam's history. What made the situation even more painful was that he was fighting an enemy. He was fighting someone he once called family. Kamran and Jim Jones built the Diplomats together. They shared shows, apartments, struggles, hunger, ambition. They were brothers long before they were stars. But when personal disagreements and business decisions separated them, the emotional wound never fully healed. In Part 4, that wound is ripped back open. Kamran entering the friction with 50 Cent wasn't just strategic, it was personal. It was cathartic of settling a debt for too long. And Jim Jones, he felt betrayed all over again. Because whether they fought years ago or not, the world still saw them as a pair. So when Kamran used his platform to amplify 50's attacks, it didn't feel like a rivalry. It felt like a brother joining the opposite. That emotional dynamic